Hi, I am recording this video in September of 2024. Why is that relevant? Because we're still in the immediate aftermath of the National Association of Realtors reaching a settlement agreement in a gigantic class action lawsuit, and the Colorado Division of Real Estate finalizing its forms designed to help Colorado real estate brokers cope with the terms of that settlement agreement. Those forms became mandatory last month in August of 2024. And there's still a little confusion, a little chaos in dealing with this. And this webcast is designed to help you cope with this, together with its part 2 video, which I'll explain in a minute. So what this video is addressing is there's some notion out there that there is some kind of battle or conflict between your regulator, the chief executive of your regulator, the Colorado Division of Real Estate, and that person is Marshall Waters, who is the executive director of the Colorado Division of Real Estate, versus the National Association of Realtors, at least on the interpretation of at least one point in the settlement agreement. And the theme of this video is, I don't think there's a conflict. I don't think there's a conflict. Give me a bit to build up to that. Concept number one. We have to remember in this settlement agreement, that the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, the unhappy people, the people who brought the lawsuit, were sellers. And the resolution of the lawsuit, the settlement of the lawsuit, is designed to benefit sellers. It's been sold somewhat, it being the settlement agreement, as sort of benefiting buyers. In my opinion, at least in a balanced market or a low inventory market, that's baloney. It won't benefit buyers. And in fact, we all know that it may hurt buyers because it's designed to create an incentive for buyers to go directly to listing brokers. And there's a legitimate fear that the buyers will be sort of thrown to the wolves and being taken advantage of by listing brokers who aren't truly neutral and truly not looking after the best interests of the buyers. It's also pretty likely that it will hurt buyers who do not have the ability to take some risk of having to pay their own buyer's broker. And even if buyers have the financial ability to pay their own buyer's broker, it's not clear if they will have the ability to do so. For example, veteran buyers getting VA loans. So it's perfectly natural for the executive director of the Division of Real Estate, who is charged with protecting consumers, which includes buyers. And I would also suggest the Division of Real Estate has had a historic soft spot for protecting buyers a little bit more than protecting sellers. And there's good reasons for that. It'd be perfectly natural for the executive director of the Division of Real Estate to have hostility to the terms of this settlement for that reason alone, ignoring the fact that it's creating a whole bunch of work. If the Division of Real Estate didn't already have enough work to do being under the thumb of the legislature and the governor's office, now there's a bunch of plaintiffs' lawyers who are creating more work for the Division of Real Estate. It's completely understandable to me why the Division of Real Estate would be hostile to the terms of the settlement agreement. That's concept number one. Concept number two. Many of you who are watching this video have seen the text of a letter that Marshall Waters wrote to the Colorado Association of Realtors, saying we're seeing some bad behavior out there. That letter does not say we, as the Division of Real Estate, are overriding the terms of the settlement agreement. It does not say that at all. It identifies some behavior of some real estate brokers allegedly using false pretenses, representing that buyers needed to sign the buyer-broker compensation agreement for insurance reasons, which is false, as false pretenses for signing the buyer-broker compensation agreement. No, can't lie, can't make false representations. And there's nothing in that letter that Marshall Waters wrote the Colorado Association of Realtors that I disagree with. Now, does Marshall Waters have the ability to override the settlement agreement in Colorado? And maybe under some circumstances she might, but she's not asserting that, and no, not in this situation. What the settlement agreement says is that unless, and I'm looking at the language right now, unless inconsistent with state or federal law or regulation, then brokers need to get this, what the division calls this buyer broker compensation agreement. And Colorado law does not have any provisions inconsistent with that requirement. Colorado law is silent about it. Colorado law does not require it, but silence is not the same as inconsistency. What inconsistency would look like is if Colorado had a statute or regulations that said brokers cannot get such an agreement. Colorado law does not say that. What inconsistent would look like is if Colorado law said brokers must get the agreement earlier than the settlement agreement says. No, Colorado law does not have such a provision. And so Colorado is not inconsistent, and therefore you need to get this buyer broker compensation agreement before you take the buyer out on a tour of the property. Okay, some of you are listening to this and you're saying, well, John, what's my risk level? What's my risk level for, not complying? What's going to happen to me? I know my regulator, the Division of Real Estate, has announced they're not going to enforce that provision of the settlement agreement. Who might do that? Okay, well, as I answer that, as I address part of that at least, let's make an assumption that the plaintiff's attorneys are totally checked out. I'm not saying they are, but they're totally checked out and they're just focusing on scooping up their big money and have no interest in enforcing this at all. And by the way, I don't think that's true, but let's assume things as favorable as we can for your risk analysis. Even if that's true, do we know whether there are antitrust testers out there, buyers who are fake buyers, mystery buyers, who are trying to establish evidence that you are ignoring the requirement of getting the buyer broker compensation agreement before the tour? We don't know. And who might be sending these testers out? Just garden variety contingency fee lawyers. Even if the big gun lawyers who brought these lawsuits are checked out, a feature of this settlement agreement is there's a 108-page document that sets this roadmap out that real estate brokers are supposed to follow. And if you're not following it, I don't think it's going to be very hard for the garden variety generic contingency fee attorney who subsidizes our television watching experience to come after you. Now, if you think that antitrust fair housing testers is far-fetched, what about just unhappy buyers who have remorse after closing on the transaction? Just buyers who are unhappy because they think they paid too much, or because the sewer line backed up, or because the furnace failed, or the roof leaks, or there's structural problems with property. Well, they wander into an attorney's office, and then the attorney starts looking over the file, and the plaintiff's bar, it might take them a while to catch on to this, but they'll also know that one of the things they can add into the kitchen sink in the complaint against you is violation of the antitrust law. There's one other risk, and the other risk is at least in low inventory markets where sellers have lots of offers to choose from. If I'm a seller and I am trying to increase my net, and you are asking me or my listing broker for a sweet co-op commission, a sweet buyer's side compensation, slip of the tongue, buyer's side compensation, I might ask to see whether you have the paperwork that supports it. And if you don't have that paperwork, you're very much, as a buyer's side broker, on the back of your heels in negotiating for as much as a commission, buyer's side compensation, as you would like. All right, how do you cope how do you cope with the reality of all this mushiness, ambiguity, combined with buyer's reluctance to sign an agreement, especially in the scenario where it's like a sign call situation, or you're taking floor duty and somebody just walks in off the ski lift and wants you to show their property. How do you cope with this when a buyer doesn't want to sign? That is the topic for our next video. Stay tuned. That'll be the next one we post. Ladies and gentlemen, remember my line. It's a complicated world out there. Be careful.